All right, it's Monday after the Florida State game here with Tiger Insiders Rodney or Scott Griffin, Tide and Tiger, and we'll go over practice, what we saw today. Obviously, your eyes probably went to the outside linebackers.
Straight to the outside linebackers. Obviously, you lose Terrell Lewis and Christian Miller, two huge losses outside. I mean, they're two best outside backers at this point. Jamie Mosley leading the drills. Mekhi Brown also in there, another guy that's been around a while, a redshirt sophomore, as well as Chris Allen, the true freshman that we're really high on out of Baton Rouge. I think he's got a chance to be an outstanding player, Scott. He was going to bring a lot of pass rush, I think. Vandarius Cowan, another true freshman that has a lot of talent. Again, no experience. Then, as we reported on Tiger Insider this morning, LaBryan Ray, the outstanding defensive lineman from Madison James Clemens, a true freshman, working with the outside linebackers in the drills today. Again, he's an outstanding guy against the run, so they probably feel like they could stick him in when Anthony Jennings played the run, maybe get some snaps from him.
There was a lot of talk that they might move Dylan Moses, who has rush ability, Mack Wilson, but Nick Saban said today in the press conference that would not be the case.
You have to be careful that you're not robbing Peter to pay Paul when you start moving guys around. You've got a tremendous amount of reps invested in a guy at a certain position, and you move him to another position, and then you don't have the same reps at that position, and now you've created, maybe two issues for yourself. I do think that there are guys on our team that have diversity that could move and play other positions, but I think we didn't just lose outside backers, we lost an inside backer too. So, and that's where those guys are. Mack could play outside linebacker. I think, Holcomb could play outside linebacker. But if we move them now, then now we've created another issue for us at another position. So, we have some young players that we think can develop. Obviously, they don't have the experience, but we've played young players here before, and we won a national championship with Minka and Ronnie Harrison playing when they were freshmen the whole time in the secondary.
All right, so Nick didn't want to weaken one position to go to another. The talent is there. Well, what's your thought process? We got 3 weeks here where guys could get some experience.
Yeah, I think when you look at the schedule, again, it appears favorable right now to be able to develop those guys. And maybe over the course of time, Anthony Jennings gets back, Rashawn Evans gets back on the inside, and then you're not in that bad of a situation. Certainly not many teams could overcome those losses, Scott, but the players we talked about on the outside, and I'm telling you, when you look at that group of inside linebackers, very impressive. Keith Holcomb did an outstanding job against Florida State. Obviously Sean Dion Hamilton had a great game. He had 3.5 tackles for losses. He was all over the field. Then when you look at the two young guys, Mack Wilson had an outstanding game, had the interception. Dylan Moses on special teams caused a fumble. I think he's going to see more and more time as we go along. He seems to be ahead of the game for a true freshman. So still a lot of talent on the field.
No doubt about it. Josh Jacobs back at practice. They expect him today, moving around a little bit. We don't know yet if he'll play Saturday against Fresno State. Tragic news. Wide receiver coach Mike Locksley's son killed last night in a shooting in Maryland.
Yeah, again, it's what a tragedy it is. I think he was only 25 years old. Scott, so what a tragedy. He's not with the team today. And looking out on the field, and again, I know this is not the most important issue, but looking out on the field, it appeared that offensive analyst Chris Weinke was working with the wide receivers with Mike Locksley not being here.
That'll be interesting because I assume they got a waiver on that. Normally, analysts can only coach coaches.
Right. Watch
film, they can get with players a little bit off a practice field, but I'm sure they met with the NCAA and got that rectified.
Oh, absolutely. When you lose a coach like this, in an instance like this, you can replace him with someone on the field on a temporary basis. And again, it appeared that Chris Weinke was the guy working with the receivers.
All right, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Jalen Hurts a little bit. A lot of people are on the boards. Jalen Hurts, 43 of 81 in his last 4 games. Now, against great defenses, Florida, Washington, Clemson, and Florida State. Only 422 yards, so 49% completion, 105 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. But there's still some issues there, throwing the ball down the field.
I think production certainly has to pick up, Scott. I mean, when you look at it, they struggled throwing the football. A lot of reasons for that. I mean, obviously, Florida State's a great defense. Talking to people around here at Alabama, they felt like that defense was top-notch in terms of the speed and athleticism. They thought there were times when they had plays that all of a sudden, because of that speed and that athleticism, those things were covered up very quickly. So that was an outstanding defense. You know, there's no question about that Jalen has to continue to improve. The offensive line has to continue to improve in protection, and he has to get them in the right protection with his calls at the line of scrimmage. So all of those things are very important, and you mentioned it, averaging 105 yards passing over the last 4 games. You know, that really has to improve.
Not good enough.
It has to improve.
Yeah, it's not good enough. So we'll talk further about that. Be sure you go to Tighter Insider later on. We'll have the Rodcast, we call it. Rodney or myself there from Tide and Tiger. And be sure you go by and register for Tighter Insider. Get in on that website as well. For Rodney or Scott Griffin saying so long, we'll talk to you later on the podcast.